was something people didn't want, which is why it was the default setting. Right.
Now, there's a difference between the 911 address number and what your address is.
Yeah,
although it may be the same.
Exactly. Right? And that's where if somebody looked and saw a building and could guess that,
It could be a little confusing where the little town of Tuftonboro has 3 mailing offices and 472 Governor Wentworth Highway, Tuftonboro, New Hampshire. I would never get them.
Right.
The next thing is, how do these towns go about this? Do they just one day decide to just do it, or do they have a public hearing, or go to town meeting and have?
That's I don't. Karen would probably. I mean, it just is a sort of case study. At some point, you guys asked us for the price. You know, when we with these new towns that we're making available, we presented as an option in the initial agreement. For towns that have been with us for a decade or more, it's generally you knew it was available, and then you said, either you or the selectmen or whomever said, what would it cost to make this publicly available? And that's a judgment you guys make as far as whether it's worth it based on how much time you're spending. Some towns want to still get the $1 copy fee or something they charge, so they say don't make it available. So those are arguments that as far as why most towns come to us, it's because the people in the town are saying this could be a value, or they're getting enough questions of people calling, why can't I get this online? Why can't I get this online?
Have you had any communities in the last 3 years that have stopped doing it?
No, okay. Not that that doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Not that I recall.
Okay.
Most of the ones that aren't available have not been available since sort of day one and just kept going that way.
And are you aware of any specific RSAs or best policies? Do you know of anything that the state of New Hampshire is considering as far as specific RSAs that cover this?
I'm not, no. My boss years ago was more involved with the public right to know and stuff like that, and he's had more arguments and discussions with folks about that. I'm not. I'm more of a database type person.
So what are we currently paying for what we got?
For the online aspect, $0.
Zero?
Yeah. And it's available and we can look at it here, that if I come in and if I want to look at somebody's parcel, I can see this information. I can connect it as a guest. It's sort of, so I can see, I can search the town, I can search by owner or parcel ID. And if I want to click over to see what property taxes are due, I can see that. But if I click on the land or the building tab, of course this doesn't have building, as a guest user, it says you need to purchase a subscription. But all of this I can see now, and the town is not paying Avatar anything for this service now. If I were logged in as a subscriber, I could see all the details of this information just as if I were standing looking at the assessment card. So making these tabs available without a subscription is the...
So I could go to my computer
and
punch in a certain amount of information and know his house.
You can know his assessment.
His assessment.
Yep. Right.
So this additional information is going to cost nothing? I mean, Avatar is going to charge us for opening this up.
The $2,700 here on this is so that if I went in as a guest user, meaning I do not have a subscription, then I could see all aspects of the assessment card.
And how much, do you have a record of how much subscription money we've brought in?
You don't bring in any subscription money. That's what we keep to make this available and to...
Okay.
We probably get $50,000 a year across all towns. If Tuftonboro wasn't there, we'd probably still get $50,000, and it probably costs us that much to schlep data around and keep the web server. So we're not making a killing off this, but we make it available.
Like a maintenance fee.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of worked for both sides of the equation, because up until now you guys haven't paid anything for it, and it's probably keeping the most consistent users. If there's somebody around here that wants access to this data, they can purchase that for $150 a year. Otherwise, they'd be here asking you for cards or calling you, emailing them for cards.
So is there a way you can tell us how much or how many subscribers there are for Tuftonboro?
I don't have that now. I could. It's a little bit. I'm not sure how. If you went to buy a subscription, you can buy a subscription for one town, or for more money, you can buy it from all towns. So anybody that's purchased a annual subscription for all towns would have access to Tuftonboro, whether they wanted it or not, or whether they would have paid for it individually. So yeah, I could tell you the number of subscriptions just to Tuftonboro.
Or no, I mean,
Sure.
all towns. would
Yeah,
be
the,
fine.
let me see the, he emailed me that the other day. Yep, let me pop into that, and I don't know the Tuftonboro, but I can.
Well, I'm assuming the Tuftonboro would be included in the all. So.
Right, right. But there could be somebody who said, I only want a subscription for Tuftonboro, yeah.
Can they say only for Carroll County or only for the school district?
No, they can purchase individual towns, but at some point you might as well get it for everything, yeah. There we go, 229 subscribers for everything as of Friday. So it's not a ton of people, but it's the ones that are
They repeat.
right. They're appraisers, they're real estate agents.
30 per county.
Yeah, I mean co-ops maybe fewer, but yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's assume that everybody that wants to get into Tuftonboro buys a subscription for all towns. Just to make it easy, because you can't pull out Tuftonboro. All this is doing is benefiting 229 people.
Well, it's saving 229 people some money.
Yeah.
It's also now saying, if in terms of benefit, whoever didn't feel it was worth buying a subscription, they would now have access to the same information. So I don't know how you qualify benefit there. Financially, yeah, it's 229 people, and in all honesty, fewer than that. Because no offense to Tuftonboro, but I guarantee, like Merrimack is 10% of the usage of the site, just because there's more people there, so.
And how many phone calls do we take a year, Karen?
A year.
Or a month, or a day?
It can be random. Some weeks can be more than others. One day can be 4 to 5. That might be stretched. One day might be 3 to 4, but a whole week sometimes might only be 5.
Yeah.
It depends on.
So one a day.
Let's say one a day.
So we're talking 250, so it's like 500, 600 people.
And some people come in and use the computer themselves.
Well, this is true, and and they come in and they pay the $1 for the paper copy, but just to clarify, these people that he's speaking of that are subscribers aren't contacting me.
Right.
Yeah, okay,
Right,
just
right.
to,
Yeah,
okay.
they don't have to.
Correct, yeah, and when I email them a tax card, that's typically the majority. Or I emailed, as I mentioned to you, spreadsheets if people ask me for, if there's a logging company that wants 20 plus whatever the acres.
You want to get the abutters and list the abutters, right?
Yeah, stuff like that. That's
so you can,
done differently, but.
yeah.
I think having it all computerized, and I was here when I was a selectman when Avatar came on board, is a great idea, because it does save time, work time, space, paperwork, and all the rest of it. For this operation, which is the operation of town government. I don't feel obligated to be convenient to anybody but the people of Tuftonboro. And I don't see this as...
I fully appreciate your point, and you do not need to direct it at me.
I'm only directing it at you.
I know, but this is what I'm saying. This is the worst sales job. We have all of these options because of conversations like these, and every board and every selectman needed to find the equilibrium they were comfortable with. But for every conversation where somebody says, I don't feel comfortable providing this access, I've had as many or more saying, why can't Avatar provide this access? This is 2018, what are you kidding me? We can't, look at this town, they have it. So I will walk out of here. My point is to answer your questions and make sure you guys are comfortable. And whether you guys, I'm not trying to sell you this, I'm not trying to convince anybody anything, right? So these are the options, I'm just trying to highlight that, yeah.
So directed.
No, I'm happy to have the conversation, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Yeah.
I mean, we can go either way, and I'm just not, I'm not on board with putting it all out there. Maybe it's just the recent developments on the interweb, as I call it. but I just don't feel comfortable with it. If you guys do, that's fine. I mean, that's why we don't have to have consensus.
That's exactly right. No, and I use this system in a lot of towns, and to me as a user, it's.
And I have to be honest, I have never gone online or even. I just don't do it.
It's a more efficient way for me to get the information that I need than having to, I can do it on a Saturday night instead of, I gotta wait till 10 o'clock on Monday morning when somebody's in. So, and I don't think I'm the only person that's true for, but it isn't all about me either. It's about, I think, using the tools of technology and having information available to folks.
So our company does both software and assessing. So in 60 or so communities, we're the municipal assessor, and when we do updates, revaluations, in municipalities, every 5 years or whatever, we make this available. We'll send out notices saying, here's what your value is, your preliminary notice of value, and here's a website where you can go to look at it, and we make it available, all tabs for 45 days or whatever. So more as a way of conveying information, because it helps. It's useful for the assessors and the data collectors when people come in to have questions about it. If those people can come in having seen their neighbors, why is this different? Oh, and some of them come in with reports off of here. They print out a card and this, here's the guy down the street. Why is mine worth more than he? It's more in terms of transparency and making that information available. Yeah. So there's that benefit to it as well. I don't know what the dollar amount is for each of those, right? But there is certainly, like you're saying, that sort of transparency.
Yeah, it seems to me that with the towns that have the GIS access and tying into the assessment cards on that what's available directly at this portal is less than it used to be. For instance, Wolfboro used to have the full assessment card at this portal. Okay, now I think you get the full assessment card when you go to the GIS portal.
Right, because they had that PDF. Right, exactly.
And so there's some sort of there's somewhat of a shift, and again that's a more accessible option because you're looking right on parcel.
Right, it's more about whether you're searching,
and then the data is available.
Yeah, exactly.
And some towns, I mean, it's not just the assessment cards; it's the history of building permits and all kinds of stuff is all online. So
you don't feel comfortable with this, let's go to some other I've not suggested that or commenting.
I got a question over here.
Oh, this is some disclosure.
Yes.
When Mark Howard put together the Conservation Commission map program the first time with LRPC, all of this was on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he since came up with something better for everything else that we were trying to do, was show how it still has property boundaries on it, but it doesn't have the tax card. And that's what's on our website. But for a while, the other one was on our website, and I still have it. I use it all the time for Conservation Commission stuff. Just finding out where you're going, or where this landowner is that you just talked to, or I use it almost weekly. And the subscribers send me some piece of send me personally some piece of junk mail at least once a week. A realtor obviously saw my tax card that says I'm a shorefront owner, or obviously saw that I'm in current use. Sometimes the acres are even there. So, somebody's already got a lot of access.
Yeah.
So if somebody's determined to get that information, they're going to get it.
And they do
Kind of like a gun.
sometimes.
That got dark quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are 11 towns, so what is that, 8% or so, that have a map tab enabled to within this. So it's similar to that cartographics thing that you talked about more from, but, yeah, so if as that other project progresses or doesn't, that may be an option as well. Or some of the, I know, the part of that was to get shape files for the maps going forward, so that would be an option.
Right. Because we have to change the, Susie Weeks is retired.
Right. Exactly. All right, any more questions for Josh?
Yeah, is there anything
You've answered my questions, sir.
Sorry, I did, or?
You have.
Okay, perfect. If there's anything I need to follow up with or other things you think of, Karen has contact
Okay.
information.
Super.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you for coming.
Sure. If anybody calls from the office, I'm here all day. Headed down the road.
All right.
Especially on a nice day.
That's right. Thanks very much. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Nice
You
to
want to
meet
make
you.
a
Yes,
decision
likewise.
today, or
Thanks for your
I
time.
want this to
Let me know.
ruminate a little bit?
We might as well freshen our mind.
Yeah, no, I'm,
Sneak it into the.
huh?
I'll start off with my comments.
Yes, sir.
First of all, every community that I've gone to thinks it's a good idea. So, on face value, I was in favor. We talked about it at the other meeting. No one has come to me pro or con. I look in the budget, for example, I guess this would go under financial administration, and it's only $2,700, but we've already spent 35% of our budget there, and this is a pretty lean budget, and we're only a quarter of the way through the year. My other thought is, if we really want to do something that, I have a couple comments.
Yeah, I was gonna say about the budget, I can elaborate on
I
that.
have a couple, unless it's going to go someplace
It
else.
is, yeah.
Where is it
It's
gonna
already
go?
put in there, actually. It's already been put
It's
in.
in the budget for this year.
Where is it?
I think it's under software, right? So,
Yeah.
agreements,
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line is we're still past the 25% mark. I do support the clerical assistant. I think the sooner we get that person appointed and get them trained, that would help alleviate some issues. I'm prepared to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second? I will second it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
This is to allow access to guests.
It's
No, universal access.
yeah, right, to allow,
Meaning universal. Some people have subscriptions.
Right.
If you have guests,
right.
you're,
It allows everybody to have access to the assessment card information
I think
online.
that's the subscription part.
does it end the subscription to
For
others?
No, it
Tufton
doesn't,
Borough
yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
It could for Tufton.
Yeah.
Why would people get subscriptions?
Because there
If they have
are
access.
131 towns
Right,
online, okay?
Oh, yeah,
So
it doesn't end.
So-
You're right, I'm sorry.
those towns that have full access available to everybody, you don't need a subscription for. But for the rest of the towns.
So it covers everything.
Right. And
For the
it sounds to
professional
me
users,
like, Josh had said that you can buy a one-town subscription, okay, at so much, all right? But once you buy, let's say, 2 or 3 one-town subscriptions, you probably paid the cost of a full subscription for all towns as a subscriber.
So, and the one-town subscription
Right,
with Dr. Borough.
all right?
so you pay $2,700 a year for the system
Yep.
That might be the prorated cost, but
Right.
That-
I can't
that-
remember.
program.
It's actually, yeah, I think it's prorated down.
It would be
because
even
it's a-
less now,
It's a partial year.
Yeah.
And the fee would be on an annual basis, calendar year, correct?
Right.
So is it $2,700 on a calendar year?
I'd have to look at the
Or
paperwork.
something,
again.
okay. You pay a fee, this doesn't add anything to it.
Pardon?
He said there's zero cost, there's no additional cost to allow, make it universal.
Well, that's the 27 or whatever.
That's the town subscription cost, right, to make it available to everybody.
We pay Avatar currently already for just our whole assessing database. That's a separate cost.
Okay.
This amount is
It's
for
an
online
additional
access.
$2,700 to maintain a universal access.
Right.
And maps, that'll be good for,
It's not about the money.
well, we have a tax thing.
Was 27 already
And that's-
prorated, or was that the annual subscription?
That was the annual
Next
subscription.
thing
So
you
we're
know, you
talking
guys,
$2,025 for 3/4 of it.
Yeah, it's something.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
that's
less,
what my
that's right,
computer
yeah.
says.
Right. All right,
okay, to do this.
Mr. Wingate.
Thank you for waiting. Happy spring, sir.
Well, it wasn't such a nice day. It would have been
It'll be nice tomorrow.
Yeah.
entertainment.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, so I read the report of the last meeting and your discussion about road maintenance, and I was stimulated.
Great. That's the purpose of this.
that's right. Did you watch the video? That,
I did not.
Joe works hard making videos, and Karen to get them up on the web
Karen's
so
trying to
everybody
get
can
her
watch them.
numbers
I
up.
Yeah.
barely have time to read the paper.
All right.
No, I'm not.
So,
Just kidding.
2009, I volunteered to be commissioner for the town of Lake Region Planning Commission.
Mhm.
And when I started doing that, found out they were in the middle of updating the Lakes Region Plan, which is an attempt to see what community problems need solving. And a lot of it's based on an extensive amount of surveying that they did with people and town government. And transportation and road maintenance is really high on the list, both from economic opportunities and from people's wishes. From both angles, it's pretty important. Also, the time I arrived, their environmental specialist resigned under pressure because he hadn't done any of the work on the plan. New executive director came in and found this out. And it really wasn't his fault, but so I wound up volunteering to do a lot of that work. There was a lot of research, a lot of writing. So I got a lot of skin in that game. And some of it has to do with the subject. So I blew the dust off of it, which pretty much is what's happened to it.
Yeah.
And I sent Karen the chapter that's on what I'm about to talk about, in case you guys
Oh, I
want to.
didn't get it yet. Did it come today? Did somebody send
Well, I
it?
sent it before I left home this morning.
Oh, okay. I can go to my email too.
No, it's just in case, if they want to read it, it's there.
Okay.
So, the issue is, our weather is changing. You can give it a name that gets people excited, and you can talk about you can debate the causes, but the fact is, our weather trends are changing. We have good, solid evidence of that. And the kind of things that are changing, besides being warmer, is we get more precipitation than we did in the past, mostly in the spring and the fall, but also now in the winter. There's rainfall type precipitation. And the storm events are more intense. You get these cells of precipitation coming out in local areas that overwhelm the storm water, what do you call it?
Drainage system.
Yeah, whatever, and problems develop. Sometimes they call these 100-year floods. We're getting more of those, if that's what it is. More often than 100-year increments or 50-year increments, however you want to measure that. There's more frequent storm events. And then winter rain. Most of our, and you might have noticed that this year, most of our snowfalls are followed by a little rain event of some kind. That creates a lot of problems when it comes to road traction. And we get more just plain rain events in the winter than we ever did before. And this is over 100 years of, you know, looking at our northeast weather. If deeper and more frequent freeze and thaws, that's where, you know, you get this warm period and the frost actually comes out of the ground or comes out of the roads, and then it freezes again, often with a rainstorm in between. And this trend is accelerating. You know, if you look at it on a graph, up until about the 50s, it's detectable, but it's not a big deal. It's just detectable if you're good at statistics. In the 50s, it starts climbing, and through the 60s and 70s, and there's an acceleration rate to that, depending on the way, you know, what numbers you put on either side of that. But it's increasing. A lot of this data comes from the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest, a place that I'm intimately familiar with in my career. That is one of 3 experimental forests, federal experimental forests, that were designed to look at watershed issues. Only 3 of them. And that's ours up here. It's over in Thornton, that's about 15 minutes north of Plymouth, so when you talk about weather situation, that's local.
Yeah.
And that data actually, it not only reinforces, but we have our temperature a little higher than average, rainfall amounts a little greater than average, so all of those things I listed from what Hubbard Brook is measuring, and they have really complex stuff up there measuring stuff. It shows that it's worse than other places in the country, and part of it, they attribute that to our proximity to the coastline. It looks like coastlines are more affected than interiors areas. So, what does this have to do with road maintenance? Storm intensity increases rainfall over short periods of time, causing localized flash flooding, erosion hillsides, roadside ditches, gravel road surfaces, culvert failures, water quality issues in water bodies like ponds and lakes. Winter rain generally freezes and causes no traction problems on the road. Freezing particles tends to break the pavement and creates potholes on gravel roads. And then on top of this, we have a changing demographic going on. Tuftonboro in previous 14 years, and this data is getting a little old, this is like 4 years old now, 4 or 5 years old. Last 2 census data. Over about a 14-year period, Tuftonboro aged 10 years, got 10 years older. Average to project that trend, where the numbers come from, like births and deaths versus kind of people who are moving to the area and buying home. It's going to go up another 10 years in the next 10 years. And we're good examples of it, us right here.
You're speaking to the choir.
Yeah. So, older people need better roads. They want better roads. They demand better roads. So that's kind of an issue for them. And then you have the first responders who have to service them, often in the worst conditions. They're going to need the roads too. So these are all things that we pointed out in a plan that communities should be thinking about. So I'm suggesting that when we think about a change, for example, we're eventually going to have to replace that bridge on Sodom Road, and we're going to fix it, but at some point we're going to replace it.
Right.
What we put in, is it robust enough in the future to handle this increased water amount, flash flooding type thing? The ditches going down to it, are they going to be reinforced? Thinking like that. Replacing a culvert somewhere, maybe we should put in a couple of inches larger culvert. Because these localized flooding. And then the other thing, it's not in the plan, but it seems to make sense to me, maybe a little contingency planning on budget. Not that you budget more money for increased storm effects, but maybe have a little reserve fund say, when we do get that wicked storm, like we had one early winter, and then we had one the year before that took out Paul Peak area, that, you know, maybe a little contingency fund to get us through that period of time.
And one of the things that I've observed some towns do, and I need to do some more investigation, but in the normal course of work, some towns work out of a number of expendable funds. And what they budget every year is just to bring the level of that expendable fund up to some benchmark. So if we have, for instance, a level of money in there for road repaving, all right, and we budget $250,000 for road repaving. That goes into this expendable fund. Then we actually expend out of that fund, and then if we only use $190,000, then that's what we budget the next year to replenish it, so that we have the flexibility. And the other thing that does, may be able to do, again, I need to look a little more carefully at what the law allows, but when I observe what some of these towns do, something like the septic replacement that we did at the library, all right? If we had an expendable fund available, then you don't have to wait to go to town meeting. That's money that you can fix it, and then in the budgeting process, you replenish it, so the next time you run into one of these things, you can deal with it, and don't say, well, we gotta wait 6 months, or if that septic had failed early in the year, it's like, yeah, you gotta wait 10 months.
Yeah, now you've got 2 septic systems.
Right.
And you spend $100 a month pumping.
Yep. Anyway, so that might be the contingent piece you're talking about. That seems like some towns use that as a way to have the dollars available to meet the need as it occurs. And certainly we've seen this past winter with the winter road maintenance events that we had an increase over prior years, and we increased the winter maintenance budget, and it wasn't enough to cover what happened already.
Wow.
And we have the back end of the year winter that we haven't even in December we haven't even got to yet.
So we have a 25, and I could be wrong, maybe more, might be a little less, but I thought it was close to 25% increase in the winter maintenance budget. And it's spent.
Yeah.
I just have to think of this. Remember what happened, town meeting, the last town meeting before this last one, last year's town meeting, when the snowplow issue came up?
Buy it.
You know, yeah, hey, add another $100,000 to that, or whatever it was. You know, I mean, I think that's how people think about it.
Right, but and that's right, you're right about the demographic, you're right about the roads, even though we get older, we drive a little slower. And people are concerned about roads as a primary asset of the town. But getting back into the budget, I don't think this winter's been 25%